All right. It says I'm live. I'm just going to wait for myself to pop up here. I'll see that the audio and the video is okay. All right. Things are happening. All right. Okay, and we have audio. Perfect. Mute that. No. Mute this tab. Perfect. And hello. Somebody's here, somebody's not here. There was one person here. I'm not sure. But hello. Okay, good. I'm going to get right into it. Because why not? So this is a live reaction. Iler suggested this. Haven't seen this video before. What exactly happened at Mount Sinai? And it's an original video by Jewish Learning Institute featuring Professor Lawrence Keleman. I don't know the institute or the good professor. I just lifted that right out of their description. Oh, I wanted to put a link to their video. Well, okay, you can find it that way. I'll put the link perhaps afterwards. And so, hey, Goosebumps is here, and Robert is here. Iler picked this, Robert, and the title jumped out at me. What is your opinion on Michael Jackson? Well, listen, I was a Michael Jackson fan growing up. I had his poster, a poster of his, not his actual poster, a poster of his, of him with a big black cat, like a black leopard sort of thing. I enjoyed his work pretty much throughout the 90s, more or less. And there was one vivid time that I remember. I remember vividly thinking, whoa, when Michael Jackson dies, the whole world will be in mourning. You'd be able to see the line to get near the grave, for miles and miles away. I thought that as a kid. Hey, KJB is here. So my opinion is that he was talented. His life was tragic, and I don't know what happened with the lawsuits, settlements, documentaries. I don't know what happened there. And so I can't tell you my opinion on that. But musically, the dude was really good. He made great music. He wrote good lyrics, and he worked with the right producers. And truly was the king of pop, according to so many people. So who am I to go against popular opinion? Yeah, I'm a Michael Jackson fan, but his later work, I sort of kind of tuned out. What was after History? I don't think I really listened to History front to back, but, or, beginning to end rather. But I mean, Dangerous and all of them was in the late 80s, and less of him with the Jackson 5, though I appreciate the crap out of the Jackson 5. Oh, never thought you as a Michael Jackson fan. Yeah, I really enjoyed his. There was, oh, another very vivid memory I have from growing up. There was one Friday evening, I'm in shul, right? I'm in synagogue. My brother's very solemn prayer going on, welcoming the Sabbath. And then there is the silent prayer, Tfilat Amidah, like a silent meditation or reading the words in the Siddur, right, in the prayer book, silent prayer. And I remember thinking to myself at some point, or at a different point when everyone was silent, but I was done with that portion of the prayer, whatever the case was, I remember I was thinking, look at all these people, these religious people, and I considered myself one for sure, all in their white shirts and Shabbos clothes, and everybody's silent and praying to God. What if Michael Jackson's jam would just come blaring out of invisible speakers because there's no microphone there. Uh, what if Jam would just start blaring out from the speakers? What would be the reaction of this synagogue right here, right now, trying to welcome the Sabbath? What would that be like? So those are a couple of thoughts that Michael Jackson sounds definitive. Yes, it does. The Ariel Marshall is here. Yes, it does sound highly definitive. What exactly happened? Which raises the question, can we know how it went down and what exactly happened? It's like yes and no, but we'll see. I'm going to dive into this. There are a couple of chats that I still haven't caught up with from previous live streams, and I would like to do that, but this is, well, let's react together. I'll jump back and forth. I'll stop every now and then for commentary. And let me know if the audio video is working for you and you can hear it and see it. So now, without further ado, let's jump in. Wait, where's that? Yes, let's jump into what exactly happened at Mount Sinai Jewish Learning Institute, featuring Professor Lawrence Keleman.
Rest tonight is very narrow. Meaning there's a lot we could speak about in terms of, where the Torah come from, and there's the written tradition and the oral tradition. There's a lot of different issues. But I want to focus on the most basic issue because we have limited time, and that is
limited time.
What exactly happened at Mount Sinai 3,300 years ago? In other words, is that mythology? Is that a real historical event? What exactly happened?
I love the fact that already he's saying, is it mythology, right? A professor.
And the approach that I would like to take is an academic approach. I would like to treat the question with you tonight in the same way that I treated it when I was in the university. So what we'll try to do is keep our feet very firmly on the ground and not take leaps of faith, and just think very clearly and very carefully. Okay, now, the discussion that we're about to have is not a simple discussion.
And it's a discussion, which I also like. It's not here, let me tell you what happens. It's let's have a discussion. Regardless of whether or not he's the only one who is speaking, right? Presumably it is a lecture, but it's a discussion. And that's, let's carry on. Oh, wait, I'll hop back in the chat as long as I stopped to blah, blah, blah. I'll hop over to the chat and see. Oh, looks like it's going to be a good video to react to. Interesting question to delve into. Shalom, James Bong. Which means, if he said that, unless you just read the title of this video, can you see me? Can you hear me? Can you see the video? Can you hear the video? Please let me know. In the meantime, well, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. Yes, let's keep going. I'm excited. Oh, commercials?
What's the...
Hang on a second. I don't have YouTube Premium, but for some reason it jumped to somewhere else. No? Yes? Where are we at?
You'll see that there are many moving parts, and they fit very neatly together, but it's not simple, and so you have to follow it each step of the way. Therefore, what I'm going to recommend is that general questions or counter-argument wait until the end, because I'll
so it will be a discussion.
Probably anticipate those questions. I've been lecturing this for more than 20 years. But if I say something that you don't understand, or it doesn't seem to fit the previous step, so then stop me immediately so I can just make that connection so I don't lose you along the way.
I wonder if he's been updating it, probably, right, throughout the 20 years of him lecturing. Is it this precise lecture? Is it him lecturing on the topic of what happened?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm going to start off with the broadest picture, which is a discussion of how religions start generally. Or you could say, what is the credibility of religions generally? And again, I'm treating this as an academic topic, so please be open-minded with me. I'm no way condemning any approach that anyone wants to take in life. I'm just doing a very calm analysis.
I like this guy.
When you look at any religion on the planet, and for my undergraduate degree, I studied about 165 major religious families that included thousands of sects and cults. What I discovered is that all religions on the planet begin when one or two people have some sort of transcendental experience, a revelation or some other sort of experience, and then those one or two people convey that experience to others who are very moved by the revelation narrative, and then those people then follow them and access the wisdom through
Wait,
those one or two leaders.
something happened to the camera? Did it glitch just now? I don't know. But okay, let's keep going. Wait, hang on, no, something did glitch. But okay, I'll just keep going. Okay, where were we? Am I still broadcasting? I hope I am. Let me just check OBS Studio. Yeah, I'm still broadcasting. Let's keep going. Oh, it's going to
It's
do this
usually how
again.
religions get going.
Okay, so one or two people that have a transcendental experience and want to convey it to the people.
When you ask religion, what do you have to offer? So every religion will describe various benefits that you'll get if you join that religion. And then you say, well, can I get those exact same benefits if I join that other religion? Instead of joining your religion, if I join that religion, will I get those benefits? So invariably, the founders of the religion will tell you no. For example, if you accept Jesus, you'll be saved. So now ask a Christian, well, I'm not going to accept Jesus, I'm going to become a Hindu. Will I be saved? So the answer is no. I mean, that you just have to be honest.
Mostly, yes. From my dealings with those who follow Jesus, Christians, Messianics, it's something that you must do. It's a fundamental thing, and without it, you won't be saved. Salvation is only through this, only through Him, right?
The answer is no. And if you become a Hindu, you'll gain control over certain aspects of nature. You can actually rise above the forces of nature and actually gain control over those forces of nature. And if you ask someone in a Hindu sect, tell them, listen, I'm not going to become a Hindu. I decided instead I'm going to become a Jew. Will I gain control over nature in that way? And they'll honestly tell you no. We have a unique technology here. And the same is true by every religion, whatever.
Well, unique doesn't mean exclusive, right?
Whatever benefits they grant you, Buddhism will grant you an unparalleled sense of oneness with the universe. You can become essentially a deity. You can become achieve this essentially divine state of being Buddha, and that state of divinity cannot be achieved. You can't pass through the 8 stages of transic insight unless you actually follow the path that was laid out by Siddhartha Gautama. That's the only way to get there. So when you say to these people, well, listen, the technology that you're offering, the system that you're providing for me is obviously not obvious, because if it was obvious, everybody in the world would be doing this.
Again, uniqueness and exclusivity. People who know a lot more than me have said that we have a predisposition, right? We have this innate human, call it a need, a want, I don't know what, but to connect to the divine, to connect to the transcendental. And regardless of the technology you use, the technique you use, the path that you lay out, I still am of the opinion that if you go in, that eventually they all link up. I don't know where and I don't know how, and you can arrive through different means to the same place. So, and this is also something I like about the Hebrew faith, but I will let him go on.
So where did you get it? Then they will tell you their revelation narrative. And every religion has a revelation narrative, and invariably the revelation narrative is one or two people have this experience and get everyone else to follow. I'm not going to, because of limited time, I'm not going to go through with you tonight, but I did bring this sheet, which is, I think, is the first sheet in your packet. I wouldn't go through it right now because it'll distract you, but how most religions started to sample, I don't know, a dozen or so religions. And you can see that all religions do start, in fact, when there's these one or two people who have this experience and then get everyone else to roll with it. Just to give you some examples of things that you're already familiar with, I'm lecturing now in a Christian country. So most of us here are very, very familiar with Christianity. And most people who study Christianity realize that Christianity does not begin, the Christianity that we possess today does not begin with Jesus. Even the Catholic Church, which is the oldest of the churches today, does not begin with Jesus. It begins...
Again, that break that I feel as well in my one and only reading of the New Testament, that break between gospel and everything else that came afterwards. I could feel a major shift in maybe I was biased to begin with, but you could say I was biased against the whole book, but that wasn't the case. But okay.
With Paul. And the story is that Jesus lived, Jesus died. About 35 years later, after Jesus died, he was walking alone on the road to Damascus. And walking along the road, suddenly, 35 years after Jesus died, he has this vision and Jesus appears to him. And Jesus tells over all the stories of the miracles that he experienced when he was alive.
Oh, yeah?
And Paul is so moved by this. His name actually was Shaul. He was actually a Jew.
That's how I
Shaul
read
is
it.
so moved by this that he converts on the spot, changes his name to Paul, goes back into the city, tells all the people that he's become a Christian and that Jesus is the way, and if you accept Jesus, you'll be saved, and tells over the stories of that Jesus told him. And he then sits down and writes more than half the books of the New Testament, including all of the books of the New Testament that contain the miracle stories about Jesus. So it turns
Wait. So there are four Gospels. I know there are others, Thomas and Mary and others. But what is it? Is it Mark, Luke, John, and Matthew? Yes. So Paul wrote those, since I think that aren't there miraculous things that happen there? Things with water and wine, things with fish, or some other sea food?
out that, and then those stories are passed down, those Pauline documents are passed down from
More commercials. Yes, more commercials. I don't think so. I'm not going to buy a watch, but thank you. Maybe
about
there's a different
65
way.
CE down to about
Maybe
320.
I'm going to pause. Maybe there's a different way to do this. This is going to be, I've had 3 commercials in 6 minutes, 2 or 3. I don't know if I want to do it this way, but it is not my video. I'm conflicted. I'm not sure what to do. Would you want to sit through the commercials? Hang on a second. Let's go to the chat this evening and see what happens. Hang on, I'm gonna reload this the chat, see if there's anything there. So no, James Bong said everything's okay on my end. Is that it? Hold on a moment. Yes, that's where we stopped. And I'm not sure what to do. I'll keep going. Either way, I'll keep going.
25 CE and 325 CE, they all get gathered together at the Council of Nicaea, along with other fragments that were written based on the Pauline documents. All of those are put together into the New Testament. It's codified into the New Testament, and Christianity is up and running. So it turns out that if Paul told the truth, the whole thing is true, and if Paul lied, the whole thing is a lie. Or if Paul had a trip or whatever.
So it hinges on one individual.
Case is, the entire credibility of religion rests on Paul. Now, that doesn't mean that Christianity is not true. It just means that the credibility of the religion rests on the credibility of one person. That's the key. And the same is true by Buddhism with Siddhartha Gautama, who ascends to the 8th stage of transic insight, comes to know all there is to be known, descends back into his body again, stands up, begins his 45-year career as a leader and teacher, and gives over the ways of Buddhism to people. Now, if Siddhartha Gautama actually ascended and became a Buddha, then in fact the whole thing is true. And if he made that up, or if he fantasized, or had some other sort of hallucinogenic experience, so then the whole thing is not true. So it's true, it's not true. We're not really addressing that issue. What we are pointing out, though, is that there has never been somebody since Siddhartha Gautama who achieved the 8th stage of transic insight. There's never been anyone else who's achieved that state. By the way, before Siddhartha Gautama, there were 44 other people. 45 people actually did this before Siddhartha Gautama. They ascended also, but the thing is, they never came back down again. The only one who came back down was Siddhartha Gautama. So how do we know about the other 44? Take a wild guess. He told us. And would he lie? So it must be true. Okay, now again, I'm not telling you that it's not true. What I'm pointing out, though, is it's an interesting coincidence that all religions on the planet begin with this transcendental experience experienced by one or two people. What I concluded when I saw this was that one of two things is true.
Hmm.
Either, for some reason, God is very shy, and so he only appears to one or two people at a time.
Maybe.
Or the other
Maybe.
possibility is
Could very well be.
that, and this is what we teach in university, the ability to maintain a conspiracy is inversely proportional to the number of people involved. So as the number of people involved climbs, the likelihood of that religion surviving drops geometrically. Without going into any of the heavy math, but I'll give you a very simple model for how
There's an
this principle
equation there
works.
too.
Let's say that you have one person who starts a cult. I start a cult, and I tell all of you I had this experience. Okay, now, there are two possible scenarios. One scenario is that throughout the rest of my life, I say to you, I swear the whole thing is true. In which case, in that first scenario, there is a chance this religion could survive. The
Yes.
second possibility is that somewhere along the line, I confess to you, hey, I made the whole thing up. At which point, the entire religion explodes.
Hmm.
So, excluding psychological and sociological factors, since there are two possible scenarios and the religion can only survive in one of them, that means there's a 50-50 chance that this religion will survive, okay, with one person who's involved in founding it. Okay, now, skip to two people. Let's say you have two people. So if you have two people, there are four possible scenarios. In the first scenario, both guys say, it's true, yeah, it's true, in which case religion survives. Second scenario, one guy says, it's true, and the other guy says, wait a minute, we just made it up in the other room a few minutes ago, in which case religion explodes.
Yeah.
Right? Third scenario, the first guy says, ha, we made it up, and the second guy says, shh, we're trying to start a religion here, in which case the religion explodes.
Yes.
Third scenario, both guys with arms over each other's shoulders say, ha, we made it up, in which case the religion explodes. It turns out, of the four possible scenarios, when you've got two people launching a religion, only one will allow the religion to survive. Okay, the equation that we use is the ability to maintain a conspiracy is defined by 1 over 2 to the n, where n is the number of conspirators. So therefore, if you've got 3 people who launch a religion, there's a 1 out of 8 chance that they will survive. You get 4 people launching a religion, there's a 1 out of 16 chance the religion will survive. 5 people is 1 out of 32, etc. That's why you've never heard of a religion that was launched when 5 people had a transcendental experience. Because the odds of that thing making it are
That's really, really great.
infinitesimal. Okay, now, zooming back again. Every religion on the planet starts with 1 or 2 people. Not surprising. Okay, then you get to Judaism. Okay, now, Judaism starts like every other religion on the planet. You open up the Torah and it says in the beginning of the Torah, God spoke to Abraham. Sure. See how suspicious that is? One guy. A generation later, God speaks to Isaac. Uh-huh. Yeah, sure, one guy. One generation later, God speaks to Jacob. Family business. Okay? Now, this looks terrible. It really looks terrible. So when you look at Judaism, it's exactly like every other religion on the planet. The initial revelation narrative is no different, and therefore, Judaism has no more credibility than any other religion on the planet initially. Then, skip forward a few chapters. You get to a very unique scene in terms of the academic study of religions. It catches everybody's attention. It's discussed on every university campus. In the second book of the Bible, in the book of Exodus,
More commercials. So much trouble in the world. Let's continue. Wait, as long as it
in the
stops,
chapter,
let me pause and see if there's anything in the chat. No, I don't think so. Let's see a second. Anything over here? Okay. Nancy Roach is here. Hello, Nancy Roach. God speaks to his prophets. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Oh, there were things. See, because I'm on OBS Studio and I have YouTube, I should just get rid of the YouTube. Okay, it works. I don't need the YouTube screen. Hold on a second. Get rid of that. Perfect. So here I am. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the chat for a moment here. Reaction video. Yes, presumably he is Orthodox. I see a kippah on his head, but that doesn't mean that he's necessarily Orthodox. It's just God speaks to his prophets. Well, let's put it this way. God speaks to his prophets that which is meant to be prophesied. But God speaks to each and every one of us if we are so inclined, you know what I'm saying? You make the vessel and the substance will be poured in. The kippah gave it away. Yes, that's what I'm thinking as well. Let's keep going. Hopefully without too many
called
commercials.
Yitro. There is a scene, this is the first place it appears, but then it appears over and over again throughout the book. There's a scene in which the Jews have escaped from Egypt. We have a tally. There was at least 603,000 adult men between the ages of 20 and 50. You add up all the numbers, it turns out there were about 3 million people who walked out of Egypt.
That's what I learned. And
They
it could
arrived
be
at the
true
foot of
or
Mount
not, but that's
Sinai.
what I learned as well.
And there, the text explicitly says that they heard God speak. 3 million people heard God say, I'm the Lord your God, you should have no other gods before me. Moses, come up to the top of the mountain, I'm going to give you the Torah. Okay? Now that is far out. You never have a religion that starts with 3 people, let alone 3 million. All the academics, they say, okay, there's something unusual going on. And by the way, right after that, after God has said, I'm the Lord your God, you should know the gods before me, Moses come up to the mountain. Moses goes up, he's up there alone, he gets the Torah, he brings it down, he says, okay folks, this is what I got on top of Mount Sinai. So that looks very suspicious again. Yeah, who knows what he was doing up there. Okay, but in the initial launch, you've got 3 million people hearing God speak.
The initial launch, indeed. This, by the way, is something that Kuzari, right? Rabbi Yehuda Halevi in his book of the Kuzari, and he tells the king of Kuzar, this is where we differ. If I'm not mistaken, that's where it appears, where he tells him, this is where we differ. The people heard it. It wasn't 1 or 2. It was an entire nation.
3 million people are experiencing prophecy. This is the first, I won't say the last, but it's the first mass revelation recorded in human history.
Definitely not the last revelation.
Okay. Now,
Mass revelation.
speaking as a university professor, I will tell you what we do in order to destroy Jewish credibility, in order to knock Judaism down to look like every other religion on the planet. Because, listen, we got a problem on the table. You don't want to face the number 1 over 2 to the 3 million. Yeah? The odds that this thing is a lie are like, it's impossible that it could be a lie. 1 out of 2 to 3 million, it looks extraordinarily credible. So then the university professor goes to work, and in 2 seconds I will destroy Judaism. It happens very, very quickly. Here's how it works.
I'll bet.
3 million people heard God speak. Where did you get that? So you say, well, it says so in the Torah. So I said, who wrote this? She said, 1 person wrote that. So now we've actually gotten back to essentially the Buddhist model. In Buddhism, you've got 45 people who sent to the 8th stage of transic insight. But how do we know that? Through 1 fellow. So you've got this massive event, but the whole massive event is only being passed to you through 1 guy. If the author of this book lied, then the whole thing is a lie. And if the author of this book told the truth, then the whole thing is true. Now, in the university circles, the way that we explain where this book came from is we don't say it was 1 guy. There's technical problems with saying it was 1 guy. So if you would go to a Jewish studies department at any mainstream university, at Harvard, at Yale, at UCLA, any of these places,
4, I think, right?
what you will hear is it was not written by 1 person. It was written by 4 people.
Yeah.
It was written by J, E, P, and D. These are 4 authors. They call them by those names. You'll see in a moment why. And then it was redacted by a 5th person who mixed everything together and produced this document. J is called J because there are places in the Torah where the tetragrammaton, a 4-letter name of God, is used. When they try to pronounce that 4-letter name of God, Yud and Hey and then Vav and Hey, it sounds like it begins with a J. And so they call the author who used that name the J author. The only thing is the Torah uses many names for God. The tetragrammaton, the 4-letter name, is one of them.
The Torah is
There's another name which you probably have heard before, Elohim. Elohim, that reference was written by the E author. So you have the J author, the E author who writes about Elohim. Then there's the P author. The P author is the one who stressed the importance of the priestly duties. And there's major sections in the book that talk just about the importance of the priests. So he was the one who wrote that. And then finally, you have the D author. That's the Deuteronomist who comes at the end of the book. Okay, now the problem is, modern scholars discovered, the people who put this theory together were not fluent in Hebrew. Modern scholars discovered that, in fact, in 1 sentence, you can have the J name, the E name, it could be discussing priestly duties, and it could be in the book of Dvarim, of Deuteronomy.
Right.
So that blows the whole theory to pieces. How could it all be in 1 spot if it was 4
It doesn't blow it to pieces if there was a fifth dude who jumbled it together, just saying.
Different authors. So they came with this other idea that a fifth guy came and redacted the whole thing and mixed it all up, and so now you can have it all mixed together. So on university campus today, they say this is a book that was written by 5 people, J, E, P, and D, redacted by R. God has nothing to do with it. It's cultural history. That's the approach that's used. And now we've solved the problem. 3 million people heard God speak. It's not true, they'll tell you. 3 million people didn't hear God speak.
It was more than that.
It's a mythology written by 5 people. Okay. That's the end of the university course. This is where I step in.
I got a crash course. Nice.
Okay. This is the beginning of the lecture. We're all on the same page now.
How long before I see results with Tai Chi?
How long before I see results from Tai Chi? I did Tai Chi once in my life, for a year, for the army, in yeshiva. That was fun.
What I'm about to do is, I'm about to explain, I'm going to assume that this whole thing is a lie, that this is really a mythology that...
Have I said that I like this guy? I like this guy. Speaking of which, speaking of people I like, let's see what's going on in the chat. Go Dogs is here. Carlo is here. Who else? Who else? Do you believe Moses knew Egyptian as well? It makes sense that he did, though. The Hebrews did not forsake their language. That's one thing in which that's one thing they retained. One of 3 things that helped them keep their Hebrew nature. Right? It was clothing. It was language. Although Moses, when he arrives in Midian, right, the daughters of Yitro say, an Egyptian man, Ish Mitzri Hitzianu. But let's see. Hit the like button, says Robert. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Okay. I hope you're enjoying I'm enjoying this.
In fact, God never wrote this. And I'm going to run with that theory as far as I can until it gets into trouble. And you'll see as the theory starts to stumble. Let's assume that a liar or liars, a group of charismatic cult leaders, put this thing together.
Mm-hmm.
And they wrote up the story about the mass revelation. If that is in fact what happened, then when they told people, either handed them the book or orally explained to them, that, hey, God spoke to 3 million people, the charismatic cult leader or leaders who told that lie had to place that event of mass revelation somewhere in human history.
Mm-hmm.
I'm arguing that the original lie had to take one of 3 forms. That is, there's only 3 times in human history where they could have argued that, in fact, this mass...
3 times in human history? That's it? I wonder what he's going to say. If you would have asked me, how many times could it have been posited by a religion that such an event occurred? I won't even begin to know how to think about it. Not really, but...
revelation took place. Again, just to clarify,
I'm very curious.
I'm running with the assumption of the secular biblical critic that the book is not from God. According to him, a charismatic cult leader sold the Jews on the story. I want to go back to that moment historically when a charismatic cult leader stands up in front of a group of people and says to them, hey folks, God spoke to all the Jews at Mount Sinai. Then they say, really, when? And he gives one of the following 3 answers. I'll start with the simplest model. The simplest model is called the present model, or the present lie. In the present lie, the charismatic cult leader says,
I was there.
Which generation heard God speak? It was you! All of you were sitting here today! And of course, we're going back to an event that's taking place 500 or 1,000 or 1,500 years or 2,000 years ago, whatever it was. I'm the charismatic cult leader. You're the people who were around at that time. And I'm telling you, you all just heard God speak. You heard him say these words. You heard him say, I'm the Lord your God. You should know the gods before me. Moshe, Moshe, come up to the mountain. Then I went up on the mountain. I got this book. I brought it down. And I brought it down to give it to you. And I hand you the book. And you're so blown away by my charisma that you all cried in unison, Amen! And the thing is up and running. Okay, now, the reason why this is called the present lie is, in this theory, which generation does he claim heard God speak?
His own?
Present generation, which is why it's called present. Very simple. Okay. Okay. Let's leave the present for a moment. Let's move over to the. Everyone's with me so far?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's move over to the
Everybody?
past
Yeah,
lie.
you're good?
In the past lie, past theory, the charismatic leader comes to a group of people and he says to them, "You heard nothing because God never spoke to any of you. But long ago, there was a great mountain called Sinai, and all of your ancestors were there. And there, God settled on the mountain, and God spoke to all of your ancestors. He said, I'm the Lord your God. You should have no other gods before me. Moshe, come up to the mountain. There was a great prophet there by the name of Moses. Moses said that he got the Torah, he brought it down, he gave it to the Jews. They all accepted it. Judaism was up and running. And Judaism has been running. Now, if I tell you it's been running ever since then until you're not going to believe me. Why?
Why?
It's a lie, and you know it's a lie because you say to your parents, hey, I just came from this lecture, and this guy told me that there's this religion called Judaism started by Moses, and all of our ancestors were all religious Jews. Mom, Dad, I don't remember you guys being religious Jews. They say, religious what? I never heard of this thing before. In which case, I sink. So therefore...
I'm not following this. I'm going to run it back a moment.
Mom, Dad, I don't remember you guys being religious Jews. They say, religious what? I never heard of this thing before. In which case, I sink. So therefore, if you want to argue past theory, the charismatic cult leader will not say that this tradition was passed down from Mount Sinai 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago, or when it's all the way down to your family. He'll say that at Mount Sinai, all the Jews became religious, and they were religious for 2 or 3 generations. But then there was a terrible, okay, now insert whatever you want, flood, assimilation, disease, war, right?
Okay.
The entire tradition was fumbled. They lost it. Everyone forgot about the Mount Sinai event, and no one in your family has known anything about the Sinai event until today, when I, Frank, have come to give you back the Torah. Then I hand you this book claiming this is your long...
So, Frank is the cult leader? Am I understanding that correctly? Because I think his name is Lawrence.
long lost heritage that has been not known by anyone in your family for 1,000 or 2,000 years. Then you ask, well, how did you get it? And I say either it was passed only in my family, or I say God came to me last night, he told me the story, and I'm giving it to you because he told it to me. Whatever the case is, I hand you the book, and again, you're so blown away by my charisma that you all cry out in unison, amen, and the thing's up and running.
Okay.
So again, in present theory, the charismatic leader says, which generation heard God speak? The present generation. In the past theory, the charismatic leader says, which generation heard God speak? It wasn't you, it was a past generation. And you knew nothing about it until I told you about it. Okay?
You knew nothing about it until I told you about it. Okay. Right. Okay.
Everyone's with me so far?
Yes.
Present, past. Okay, now you know what the next one's going to be called. Okay? We go over here. The next one's called future. And in the future lie or the future theory, what happens is the charismatic cult leader comes to a group of people and he says to them, you heard nothing. And why did you hear nothing? Because God never spoke to you, but God never spoke to your ancestors. Because God has not yet spoken. 5 words. But someday, all of your descendants will gather at the foot of a great mountain, Sinai. And there will be a great prophet, Moses. And God will say, I'm the Lord your God, you should have known the gods before me. Moses, come up to the mountain. Moses will go up, he'll get the Torah, he'll bring it down. And I happen to have an advanced copy right here. I then hand you the book, and you're so blown away by my charisma that you all cry out in unison. Amen. Amen. And we're up and running. Okay, good. Now, understand the intellectual...
I love the way he's breaking this down. Let's see. Oh, yeah, this is Moshe, seems to be a generic name often given to pharaohs. You mean, well, I know there was Ramesses. Messes sounds like Moses. But Moses, right, son of Yocheved and Amram the Levite, he had, is it 10 names? 10 names? If I'm not mistaken, in the Midrash it says he had 10 names. Avigdor being one of them, and Chovav being one of them, Yeter being one of them, if I'm not mistaken. Well, I'll leave it at that. But I hear what you're saying. Moses seems to be a generic name because many people say, what? How could the daughter of Pharaoh have given him Moshe ki min hamayim meshitihu? That's what it says in the Torah. She named him Moshe ki min hamayim meshitihu. Right? She drew him out from the river. Yes, to draw out, precisely. Exactly. Okay, let's keep going.
Integrity, the argument that I just made. I'm claiming that if this book is a lie, the original lie that was told by the charismatic cult leader had to take only one of three forms. He either had to say, you all heard God speak, present theory, your ancestors heard God speak, past theory, or your descendants will hear God speak, future theory. There is no other lie he could have told, because where else is he going to place that event of mass revelation besides the past, the present, and the future? Clear? Everyone's on.
See, I was under the impression he's going to name periods in recorded history or just before recorded history where that could have taken place somehow, which is why it just boggled my mind on how he's going to settle on three. Past, present, and future makes a lot more sense, you know. Speaking of the dimensions that we spoke of yesterday.
On board?
I'm on board.
It's, what I'm saying is so simple, you can't believe I'm actually making a point out of this. I'll show you why I'm stressing it. There are now only three possible lies that could have launched Judaism. What happens if I show you that for technical reasons...
Yeah, another commercial. I don't want a webinar for finances and bonds. Thank you, though.
The future lie could never have worked. Then I would know that the lie called Judaism was launched either using the present or the past mythology.
Right.
Okay. But what happens if I show you the future lie couldn't have worked, but the present lie couldn't have worked either? Then we'll know that the original liar told a story that was the past lie.
Okay.
And that's how Judaism got launched. But what happens if I show you that the past lie couldn't have worked either?
Let's go.
The past lie, the present lie, and the future lie. If none of these lies could have launched Judaism, then what's the other alternative?
It's the truth.
Right. It's the truth.
Maybe.
And that is going to be the path that I'm about to follow. In part one of this lecture, there'll be two parts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to point out a small problem with the future lie, a small problem with the present lie, and a small problem with the past lie. When we see how difficult it would have been for any of these lies to have successfully launched Judaism, and given that these are the only lies that could have launched Judaism, think, well, there's no lie that could have launched this religion. But the religion is launched, which means it wasn't launched by a lie. Okay, that's part one.
Okay.
Then, in part two, I'm going to drop a bomb, which, in one fell swoop, will take out past, present, future, and any other theory you ever hear ever in your life. In other words, any explanation for how this thing could possibly not be from God dissolves in light of the bomb, which is coming in part two. Okay, so that's the roadmap. That's what's about to happen. Here we go. Everyone's with me so far?
Yes. Are
Questions,
you people with
questions, anything? Do you want to ask?
I have trouble with your past lie, because it's your construct of how the past lie would have been a past lie, and I don't necessarily agree that
Good.
it would have had to have been that construct.
So let's run with an alternative construct. Throw out like another...
Follow what I'm saying?
100%, I'm totally with you. What's about to happen is I'm going to expand my construct so much it will include what you're about to say. Watch. Offer another theory that would fit into past.
Well, I don't necessarily follow that everyone would have had to have been following the religion for it to have been.
Too bad the question isn't audible, but okay.
Basing it on that if this was told and saying that.
What do you people think so far? I'm enjoying it. I really, really am.
That's sort of-
Hey, Seek Truth is here.
It's something you're
Hello,
saying
hello.
is the tone that people would have followed it just because they would have known it.
Put part two on your schedule.
Followed it just because they were.
I just might, Nancy. I just might.
Ah,
I think it's
let me just
both
say
in
over here
this
what you're
lecture.
saying. I agree with you. 100%, I agree with you.
This isn't part one of two, from what I've known. It's an hour and 14 minutes, and I'm thinking both parts are here. I don't know if I'll get to
Let me
both.
make sure that I'm getting it right, though. What you're saying is that in the past lie, the way that I presented it was, a charismatic cult leader says to them that once upon a time there was Moses, Mount Sinai, the whole thing took place. It wasn't passed down through the generations. None of you ever heard about it because the whole tradition was lost.
Kind of. I mean, I think the way you initially presented it was passed down, but, and they're saying, well, it wasn't because I never heard of it. But
Oh.
it doesn't necessarily have to have been that
So,
way.
so right. So I'm clarifying what past theory is you're 100% correct. Past theory is, just clarify one point first.
Oh, go get it.
In
Good.
past theory, let's just like redo past theory right now. Let's like live. 2,000 years ago, we're there watching Jesus get launched. I make this whole religion up in the other room 15 minutes ago. The religion has not existed up until now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I write the book. Ink's almost dry. I walk into the room, right, and I say to you folks that this is not a new religion, right? This religion was created 1,000 years ago. And all of your ancestors used to keep this religion. So you say...
Which reminds me of when they find the Torah scroll. And is it Chizkiah, king of Judah, where is it Shaphan HaSofer? One of the scribes? Oh, come on, Sefer Matzati. Sefer Torah. Anyway, yes, let's continue. Or is it Yoshiyahu? It's Yoshiyahu, isn't it? Oh, I'm mixing up my kings of Judah. I think it was Yoshiyahu.
Funny. We never heard of this before. So I said, well, of course not. Why? Because the flood or the disease or the war or the assimilation or whatever it was wiped out any trace of this thing in your history, and no one in your family has known about this religion already for 500, 1,000, 2,000 years, whatever it is. Now that's a lie, what I'm telling you. The truth is I just made it up. But I've got to explain why don't you know about this if this is an old religion in your family. So I make up this whole lie about how the whole thing was lost. And that then enables me to pass it off on you. So I think I'm totally agreeing with you. No one is going to be keeping this thing before I show up in the room because I just invented it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've lost myself somewhere here, but I'll figure out my...
Within 5 minutes, you'll be back. You can ask retroactive questions. Just say, I got it now. Yeah. As soon as the question becomes clear again. What I'm saying is fairly clear. Everyone understands the three theories that are on the table? Okay. Now I'll start to show you small problems with these three theories. Some are more obvious, some are less obvious. Let's start with the problem with future because it's pretty obvious.
Obviously.
I'm going to show you the weakness with future lie by showing you a relative strength of present and past. When you see the relative strength in present and past, right away you'll look at future and say, oh, well, that's really weak. Okay, watch. Here's how it works.
Oh, good timing. No, I don't want CRM software, but because we were considering it for the office at some point, it just won't stop. They are relentless. Let's continue.
One of the rules in academic analysis is, quote one of my professors, you're not allowed to suck theories out of your thumb. That is, you can't just make up whatever you want and propose it. All theories have to bubble up from data. You've got to have data. If you don't have data, then what you're proposing is wild, is crazy. So we don't go in that direction. Everything has to be, as we say, move the sauce. It all has to be rooted in data. One of the facts that nobody involved in this discussion contests is that there are a group of people on the planet today who believe with all their heart and soul that their ancestors heard God speak at Mount Sinai 3,300 years ago.
That's us.
These people are called Orthodox Jews. I've met them. I know they're out there. Yeah. And they think this thing is for sure true. Okay, now, until I interviewed an Orthodox Jew for the first time, I thought that the reason the Orthodox Jews believe in this thing is because it says so in their book. And that's where they got it, because it says so in the book. Okay, now, I've interviewed thousands of Orthodox Jews since my first interview, and I have not once met an Orthodox Jew.
Oh, so you know what? It could be that he's just in a synagogue or somewhere, and the kippah is there because he wanted to cover his hair, his head. And could be he's entirely secular. Speaking of, I don't know who asked in the chat. Speaking of the chat, is there anything going on there? Huh? You people, okay, let's see. Makes me think about, Ariel says, makes me think about joint hallucinogenic experiences where everyone sees the same thing and has the same trip. Well, I'll tell you, that is definitely something that I can definitely see how that could have happened. Not in the sense of, in the sense that the people of Israel were experiencing something, let's say, hallucinogenic and psychedelic, but it was as one, ke'ish echad belev echad, as one person with one heart. Let's continue.
Who first heard about the Sinai revelation by reading it in the Torah. When you meet an Orthodox Jew and you ask them, where did you hear about this thing? What do they say?
From my parents?
From their family. Their parents told them.
Yes.
So now what we've established is this is not the first generation of Orthodox Jews in the year 2011. There were Orthodox Jews in the previous generation also.
Yes.
And if you would come with me back to Hebrew U, right, or down to the Israel Museum, I live in Jerusalem. If you go to the Israel Museum, I can show you documents going back 2,000 years showing you generation after generation after generation of these Orthodox Jews who believe with all their heart and soul this whole story, perhaps a mythology, about God speaking to the Jews at Mount Sinai.
Yes.
So now what you've got is, you've got a chain with links going back 2,000 years. Now the whole discussion in the university is, what's at the top of that chain? Is the top of that chain a very charismatic cult leader, or is the top of that chain God at Mount Sinai? But there is no one in the discussion who disputes the chain. There have been 2,000 years these people believe this thing. Yeah?
There are people who dispute that, aren't there? I would think there would be. I don't.
That is accepted by the secular, the reform, the conservative, the reconstructionists, the non-Jews in academic circles. Everybody agrees there is a chain. Okay, now, watch the strength in present, the strength in past, and right away you'll see the weakness in the future. Go to present theory. In present theory, the charismatic leader comes to you and he says, you all heard God speak.
Yes.
Now, if I'm incredibly charismatic and you're wild-eyed, crazed, escaped slaves, and you believe this thing, and I tell you, yeah, you all heard God speak, and you buy that, what do you tell your kids?
I heard God speak.
We heard God speak. What do your kids tell their kids?
I heard God speak.
Your grandparents heard God speak.
Oh, right.
And what do their kids tell their kids? Your great-grandparents heard God speak. And what you'll end up with is a chain going down through history of people saying, yeah, our ancestors heard God speak at Mount Sinai. Okay. The present theory, the present lie, would generate a chain of people going 2,000 years through history saying, our ancestors heard God speak at Mount Sinai. What do you see? The present lie could generate the sociological phenomenon that we're looking at today.
Correct.
Clear? You ever understand what just happened? The present lie works. It could have done the job. Am I with you? With me? Watch. Go over here to past. In past lie, the charismatic leader comes to you and he says, you heard nothing, but long ago God spoke to your ancestors. If I'm incredibly charismatic and you buy this lie, God spoke to your ancestors, what do you tell your kids? God spoke to our ancestors. What do they tell their kids? God spoke to our ancestors. You'll end up with 2,000 years of people saying God spoke to our ancestors. Is that the sociological phenomenon we're looking at? Yeah.
Yes, it is.
That's these Orthodox Jews. So what do you see? The present lie could have launched this tradition that has existed for the last 2,000 years. The present lie could work also. You with me? Present lie works, past lie works. Watch. Small problem with future. In the future lie, the charismatic leader gets up in front of you and says 5 words. God has not yet spoken. If I'm incredibly charismatic and I persuade you God has not yet spoken, what do you tell your kids?
God has not yet spoken.
God hasn't spoken. And what do they tell their kids? God hasn't spoken. And you end up with generation after generation after generation saying, God never spoke. Is that the sociological phenomenon we're looking at when we look at Orthodox Jews? No.
Negative.
What do you see? The future lie could not have been the lie that generated Orthodox Judaism. It could never put that thing out. Did I just lose everyone? Are you with me? Should I say it one more time? Clear? No? Yes?
I mean,
Say it again, or you're
fairly
clear?
clear. Yeah.
You're clear. Good. Okay, fine. Good. Yeah, I just want to make sure. Okay, fine.
Hey, Sinizar is here. Hello. How you doing, Sinizar? Commercials. skippity skip. Sorry, my guy. Let's keep going here.
One down, two to go.
Two to go.
Yeah? This future lie does not match the reality that we're looking at. So therefore, it did not produce this reality. That's not how Judaism started, not with future lie. Go to present. Okay. Okay, the fastest way to do this, I think, is with a metaphor, an example. Then you understand what the weakness is in present.
What could it be?
One of the
Convincing people?
most studied cults in modern American history is a group that was launched in Southern California. It was launched by a very charismatic cult leader by the name of Marshall Applewhite. Applewhite went to a wealthy community called Rancho Santa Fe in California. Rancho Santa Fe makes Beverly Hills look like a slum, just to get this clear, yeah? And he spoke to people there and he told them that you don't have to live these lives of quiet desperation. There's a better place. A place we can all go. A place called heaven. And you can go to heaven if you'll just follow me through Heaven's Gate. And he launched a group called Heaven's Gate. Okay, now, in his first revelation, Marshall Applewhite revealed that if you want to pass through Heaven's Gate, you must be wearing black Nike tennis shoes. And 40 members of the Heaven's Gate cult went out and bought black Nike tennis shoes and started wearing them 24/7. He was able to take a lot of money from them. He bought himself a palace in Rancho Santa Fe. Several months later, he had a second revelation, got the whole group together, and there he explained to the people that the men are going to have a much more difficult time than the women passing through Heaven's Gate, because there's a particular piece of male anatomy you cannot have when you pass through Heaven's Gate. He passed out X-Acto blades and Cordyceps spray. All the men performed minor surgery on themselves, what was called minor surgery. And the cult kept going.
Minor surgery?
Several months later, Applewhite got the group together again at the palace. And you'll remember there was a spectacular comet that flew within eyesight of Earth called the Hale-Bopp comet.
Yes, that's right.
So Hale-Bopp had this beautiful long tail and this bobble on the back of the tail. And there was a whole discussion, what's the bobble on the back of the Hale-Bopp comet? Is it hot gases? Is it a meteorite? Turns out it was hot gases. And I was involved in the study of cults. I was told that if you do not know Applewhite theorem well and live by it, you could be drawn to a cult. Anybody can be sucked into a cult. Don't think that, it's only crazies who get pulled into this thing. It's not true. And if you've ever spent time interviewing people from cults, you'll see they start out as perfectly normal people, most of them. And I can start naming, meet people who are involved in Scientology, meet people, again, cult after cult after cult, and these people, everything going for them. And then they get involved in something really bad. What's Applewhite theorem? Two parts. Part A, people are gullible. They'll believe anything, even something that asks them to act self-destructively. People are gullible. They'll believe anything, even something that asks them to act self-destructively.
Yeah.
B,
Guilty as charged.
as long as the lie cannot be checked. Now, what do we mean as long as the lie cannot be checked? Why did Marshall Applewhite say, hey, the spaceship that dropped your mother off here is coming to pick us up? Why didn't he say that? What would have happened?
Ask your mother.
Someone would call their mother. And the mother would say, you're in a cult. You would have said, call your mother, call your mother. In 15 minutes, the whole thing would have gone up in smoke. Marshall Applewhite told a lie that couldn't be checked. A spaceship is coming to pick us up. Right? Or had a revelation that you should perform this terrible surgery on yourself.
Okay.
Or you should wear black Nike tennis shoes. No one can check that. Watch this. Hi, my name is Paul. I just came back from the road to Damascus where I met Jesus. Can you check that? Hi, my name is Siddhartha Gautama. I just descended from the 8th stage of Transic Insight. Can you check that? Hi, my name is Joseph Jr. I discovered golden tablets written in Reformed Egyptian, which I destroyed because who needs golden tablets anyways? But here's the translation. You check that? Every single religion on the planet begins with a lie that conforms to Applewhite theorem. All religions start with uncheckable lies. Why? Because people are gullible. That's the whole of the human psyche. Any normal person wants to believe stuff.
Yes, that's what I started right before I hit play here on this video. We want to believe stuff. We do.
So because they want to believe things, they can easily be sucked out into crazy beliefs as long as the lie cannot be checked. People are naive.
And while the commercial is running, now he said gullible and now he said naive. And someone called me naive the other day. Oh, I don't remember who it was. I'll remember in a second. Point is, and I said I'm naive perhaps, but not gullible. But you know what? I'm also gullible to some degree for sure.
But they're not that naive. If you tell them a lie that can be checked, they will check it. Which is why no religions start that way. Okay, now watch. Here's the problem with present theory. In present theory, charismatic cult leader comes to you and says, you all heard God speak. You heard him say, I'm the Lord your God. You have no other God before me. Moshe, come up to the mountain. Now, if he told you that your mother heard God speak, could you check that? If he said your mother heard God speak, yeah, call your mother. If he said your grandmother heard God speak, could you check that? Ask your mother, ask your grandmother. But he's telling you the ultimately checkable lie. He's saying you heard God speak. You would know for sure he's lying, and the entire cult explodes instantly. Therefore,
but if he's really charismatic and they are able to buy it because they are interested in it unconsciously, I don't know what, they want to believe stuff, at what point does it all explode?
are no mainstream academics in the world at any university that argue for present theory. I've never met one person in my life who teaches at a university who believes in present theory because it's a violation of Applewhite theorem. People are dumb, but they're not that dumb. No one's going to believe that they heard God speak. Okay, now, I have heard one man who had a PhD argue for present theory.
Huh.
He's not a professor at the university, but this was his argument. He said, isn't it true that Abraham went to sacrifice his favorite son, Isaac? So I say, yeah, it says that in the book, so what? So he said, would any psychologically normal person want to kill his favorite son? Obviously, Abraham wasn't well. Step 2. He says, isn't it true that Isaac, at the time of the sacrifice, was an adult? And if you work out the numbers, he was 37 years old.
30-something.
Yeah, he was an adult. And he cooperated. Would any psychologically normal person stick out his neck for his father to slice? Obviously, Abraham's developmental disability was passed genetically into his son Isaac. Isaac passed this disability into his son Jacob. Jacob passed it into all the tribes. By the time they got to Egypt, it was an entire nation of retarded people. Moses said to them, you heard God speak. And they said, we heard God speak, and it was up and running. So now, this is ultimately what you've got to come to. If you want to defend present theory, you've got to say that the people that we're dealing with back then were really dumb. We're talking about people that are less intelligent than anyone you've ever met. Because you take any friend you have and bring them to me, and I'll say, you heard God speak, and they're going to say, no, I didn't. No one is that naive. That's the problem with present theory. The problem with future is, the future lie would not produce the sociological phenomenon we're looking at. There are people who believe their ancestors already heard God speak. Future lie wouldn't produce that. The problem with present lie is people are naive, but they're not that naive. If you tell them they heard God speak, no one is going to believe it. With me so far? Third problem. Here's the past theory, the great white hope. Let's see if this is able to rescue the mythology. In past theory, charismatic cult leader comes and he says, you heard nothing, but your ancestors heard God speak.
Okay.
Why don't your parents know anything about this? The tradition was lost. There was Moses, he says. There was a gap where no one knew anything about Mount Sinai. And then came Frank, me, right? And I gave you the book. Moses, gap, Frank. That's past theory. With me so far?
Okay, yeah.
Watch. In your packet, the fourth sheet says on top of it one of the many chains of Torah transmission. Okay, now, this little document took me 2.5 years to put together. I'll tell you what I did. I started with a man who I met in Jerusalem who's listed on the bottom right of your sheet. On the bottom right of your sheet, there's a man whose name's listed there as Rabbi Shlomo Voba. I put down his death date. He passed away in 2005. Okay, now, I met Rabbi Volba, and I said to him, all this Torah that you're teaching people, where did you get it? She said, I got it from my teacher. I said, who's your teacher? He said, my teacher was Rabbi Yerucham Levovitz from Mir, Poland, pre-World War II. So I did some research, and I actually found 4 independent sources which mentioned that Rabbi Yerucham Levovitz had a student by the name of Shlomo Volba. So I've now got 4 texts which are testifying that, in fact, there is a link between these 2 men. And I played the game continuing backwards. I found that Rabbi Yerucham Levovitz was a student of Rabbi Simcha Zissel of Kelm, and that Rabbi Simcha Zissel was a student of Rabbi Yisrael Salanter. And I wouldn't put a name down the sheet, none of the post-biblical names, unless I had 4 independent sources. I'll explain why 4 in a moment. In this way, I was able to produce this chain of transmission. This is an intellectual ancestry
I would love to see that sheet of paper.
of the tradition of Judaism, going straight back from the man who I met back to Moses and God at Mount Sinai. Straight without a break. Okay, now, all the post-biblical names
Straight without a break. I would love to see that sheet of paper.
were confirmed from 4 independent sources. Why? I tried to confirm from 5, and I couldn't do it. Because there's a period between around 500 CE and 1000 CE where the literature is very sparse. And to make all the connections, I was not capable of making the connections. I actually have heard that since I ran this project now, whatever, 20 years ago, somebody else has filled in a lot of the names during that period. But I was only able to find 4 independent sources during that period that confirmed the chain that I was working on. I didn't put names with only 3 independent sources, because with 3 independent sources, I could produce 10 of these lists, 10 different lists. And if you only want 2 confirmations, I could produce 100 of these lists, right? After all these people have more than one student. So therefore, this is one of thousands of chains you could put together.
Right.
Okay, now, here's the key. This is all based on Jewish literature. All the biblical names I got from the Bible. All the post-biblical names I got from Jewish literature. Watch. In past theory, the charismatic cult leader comes to a group of people and he says to them, there was Moses, there was a gap, and then came me, Frank.
There is no gap, but there is a commercial. Arthritis. No, I don't have arthritis, but thanks, I guess. Let's carry on. Wait, as long as it stopped, let's go to the chat. Is there anything there? So Ariel, Robert, and Sneezer are having a back and forth there. Carlo is here as well. He talked to God from a whirlwind. That's Job, yeah? Didn't God reveal himself to Job before Mount Sinai? Yes, indeed. The Heaven's Gate crazies, said Seek Truth. Their leader looked all wild-eyed and crazy all the time. Wow. Okay. Ariel says, I was taught one translation of the first verse of Bereshit that was, in the beginning of God's constant recreation of the heavens and the earth. Yes, it says that Adonai borei olamot umachrivan. He creates worlds and destroys them. This has to do with the cyclic nature of things. It has to do with that 7 times 7 arriving at the 50. And there's a constant recreation also, because at the beginning there was the divine utterances, if you will, the revelation of speech, and that revelation of speech is indeed what is still being recreated at this very moment. And from those original speeches, from those original utterances which brought forth creation, it has then, much like the Big Bang released everything, and it was in mixing and interacting and intertwining, eventually producing everything we see from that, from that dense singularity. It evolved and things moved around, and those words, those utterances of Yehi this, Yehi that, right? Let there be this, let there be that. Those are still there, those utterances. It's a constant recreation. Even right now at this very moment, like I mentioned a while back, I was talking about Hashgacha Klalit, Hashgacha Pratit, where there is that idea of God knowing everything all the time, from the tallest giraffe to the tiniest microbe, making everything happen right now. All the laws of nature, all the laws of physics, everything we know through space and time, this universe, multiverse, omniverse, everything is known, and it is being orchestrated anew right now by the divine will of the creator at this very moment now, constantly, and it's always new, always being recreated. First word of Bereshit is a prophecy. In the beginning of. Okay, let's continue, and then I'll head back to the chat.
MGF.
Okay, let's go back a few seconds.
Me, Frank.
Right, okay.
MGF.
Moses Gap Frank.
If I'm incredibly charismatic and I persuade you that there was Moses, there was a Gap, and there was Frank, MGF, if I tell you MGF and you believe it, what do you tell your kids? MGF.
Yeah.
And what do they tell their kids? MGF. And you end up with a chain going down through history about Moses, then 1,000 or 2,000 year gap, and then Frank.
Right.
Here's the problem. In an otherwise comprehensive Jewish history, there's no record of two things. There's no record of a 500 or 1,000 or 2,000 year gap where no one knew anything about the Sinai event. And there's no record of a Frank, an incredibly charismatic leader who, after the greatest crisis ever in Jewish history, when no one knew anything about Mount Sinai, restarts the whole religion. If I told you a lie about Moses Gap Frank, then people would know about Moses Gap Frank. Somebody would know. It would have been recorded somewhere in the last 2,000 years. There would be a mention of the Gap and Frank. I mean, after all, listen, when I lecture in university circles and I tell them, listen, folks, tell me something. What's the name of the man who brought down the Torah and gave it to Jews at Mount Sinai? 100 undergraduates will lift their hands and say, that was Moses. I say, great, that's what it says in the book. How about this? When Moses died, who took the Jews into the land of Israel? So, 20 undergraduates raise their hands and say, oh, that was Joshua. I say, okay, very good, you got it right. Here's a tough one. What was the name of the man who brought the Jews back from Babylonian exile? So a few of the grads will say, okay, that was Ezra.
The scribe.
So I say, okay, good, right. Okay, what was the name of the man who redacted? What was the name of the man who redacted the Mishnah? So a couple of guys raised their hands and said, okay, we know that was Judah the Prince. So okay, great. Who redacted the Talmud? So another couple of people say, okay, that was Ravina and Rav Ashi.
I did not remember that it was Ravina and Rav Ashi. How lovely. I hope to remember that.
Why do these university students know these people's names? The answer is they made the most seminal contributions to Jewish history and Jewish literature. But none of these guys that I just mentioned are as important to Jewish history as Frank, who after a massive gap when no one knew anything about Sinai restarted religion. But there is no Frank in this list. I have all these people's books on my shelves. None of them are known for restarting Judaism after a gap. The opposite. We know who each one's teacher was. Which means that in Jewish history there was never a record of a Frank or a gap, perhaps because there was never a Frank or a gap.
Oh man, so many commercials. I'll head back to the chat in a second when this is done, and we'll see what's going on. Just hit and pause. Okay, let's hit pause. Hey Jen, asks Robert, there's a video on the Bereshit prophecy. I think you shared that with me years ago. Could that be? I don't recall. I think that you did anyway. Okay, let's see. Was there anything here? No, I mean, you're going back and forth there. That's cool. I'll just keep going with the video. I am still really enjoying this. Let's keep going. Okay. There was no Frank.
Past is gone, present is gone, future is gone. There is now no lie that could have launched Judaism. Okay? End of part 1, beginning of part 2. The bomb.
Now, wait. Before the bomb, let's consider other major religions. It's definitely one of those 3 lies. I mean, I'll trust the good professor. I'll take him by his word. I'm trying to sort of transfer that idea over to others. Oh, okay. So we're talking about 1 or 2 people, and then we're talking about ancestors, like the nation. Right. That's why it differentiates. Okay, so he was narrowing in those first minutes on Judaism, which claims it was an entire nation that heard it, and not simply 1 or 2 people. And he says it's always 1 or 2 people because that can keep it nice and tight, and nobody can debunk it like that, or rather, nobody can go against it. Right? The more people there are, the more options there are of people making it go bust. So okay, right. Let's keep going.
Okay. Now, what I just did was child's play. The bomb is 1,000 times more powerful. Watch.
Nancy, are you ready for
Imagine
this?
the following. I pull out of my pocket a solid gold, 14-karat gold pen, and I show you, folks, this is no ordinary pen. This baby writes with solid gold ink, 14-karat gold ink. So you say, Keleman, that's amazing. But where did you, a university professor, get one of those? So I explained, on my salary, we really can't afford these. What I did was, I used this handy-dandy chemical formula for performing alchemy, and I performed alchemy. I transformed what was once blue and clear plastic into pure solid gold.
Nice.
So, you say, really? You're not lying to us? No. Would I lie to you? Of course not. So you say, really? Could I borrow that formula for a few minutes? And you grab the formula, which I claim contains all of the elements of how to perform this procedure, and you make copies of this thing, and you hand it out to 100 physicists and chemists. And you say to them, Keleman claims he performed alchemy, turned plastic into gold. We want to know if he's lying or telling the truth.
I think classic alchemy is lead into gold, right?
Check it out. You hand this thing out, and 100 teams of physicists and chemists attempt replication. They try to perform the exact same experiment I claim that I performed. They try it every single day, 365 days a year for 10 years. And after 10 years, all 100 teams come back, they throw the thing on the table, and they say, it didn't work. Okay, now, be calm and rational. What do you conclude? When I claim that I turned plastic into gold, was I lying or telling the truth? Clearly, I was lying. How do you know? Right, they attempted to replicate it, didn't work. Okay, now, let me slow your brain down and show you how you came to the conclusion I was lying. You're 100% correct. Every person in this room believes in the scientific method. The backbone of the scientific method is anything that's natural will happen more than once. I can't claim that, I got lucky. Your 100 scientists didn't get lucky. Doesn't work that way. There's 4 basic forces in the universe. There's gravity, electromagnetism, the nuclear strong force, and the nuclear weak force. That's it. You have 4 basic forces. They never change their strength. Gravity is always the same strength. You know that gravity is not more powerful on Earth than it is on the moon. Just the moon has more mass, so therefore it has a stronger pull. But gravity, that force, is always the same. The nuclear strong force, the nuclear weak force, they never change their strength.
I always call it the weak nuclear force and strong nuclear force, but apparently it's nuclear strong and nuclear weak. Sure.
Send men to the moon based on that they will never change their strengths. And matter is matter. It doesn't go anyplace. It can become energy. It's a different form of matter. But the amount of matter and energy in the universe is constant. Right? Law of conservation of mass and energy. It never increases, never decreases. So if you have the 4 basic forces that never change their strengths, and matter is matter and energy is energy, every single time you perform an experiment, you should get the exact same result. Every single time that I let go of this book, it will fall down. At least under these circumstances. Now, if you change the physical circumstances, you put a very powerful vacuum up there and flip that thing on, and then when I drop the book, it'll go up. But under these physical circumstances, every time I perform this experiment, it will drop down. Natural things happen more than once.
Natural things happen more than once.
this idea that natural things happen more than once is thoroughly accepted in every area of science, in the soft sciences and the hard sciences. The hard sciences would be physics, chemistry, etc., astronomy. The soft sciences would be the sciences of the mind, things like psychology, history, religions. The sciences of the mind also believe that natural things happen more than once. For example, I have a book on my shelf called The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 4. I think they're up to 4B now.
The DSM.
But the DSM-4. The DSM-4 lists everything that could psychologically go wrong with an individual. The book is that thick. Okay, now what's astounding is that with billions of people on this planet, the book is only that thick. There's only that many ways the human mind can malfunction.
Well,
why? Because brain chemistry has parameters. And so you got a lot of interesting stuff popping around your head, but you don't have hydrochloric acid up there. Yeah? In other words, your brain is different than every other brain in this room, but by very small percentages.
Sure.
And because brain chemistry has parameters, therefore, you only react within certain parameters. So for example,
well, that's again going with the idea that disorders are merely chemical imbalances, and I think either it's still being disputed or it was I don't know where that stands, but it's more than just a chemical imbalance. And people have been taking medication, right, SSRIs and things for such a very long time, and while it can help symptomatically, it won't necessarily help you to, I guess, fully recover, fully heal, whatever the case may be, return to equilibrium. I think that, I mean, I'm reading a book now slowly. Unfortunately, I would rather keep going with it, but other work gets in my way. Well, in my way, deadlines, you know, I'm a writer. The body keeps the score. Trauma, the mind, the brain, the body. And I'm reading this for work, but it's not only technically a chemical imbalance, or at least he mentions it. I forget the author's name. You know what? I would love to remember precisely what he said there. This is a book that was written a decade ago or so, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. I think it was like a decade ago, 2 decades ago, something like that. And he speaks there on the fact that, you know, is it merely a chemical imbalance? But I don't know it off the top of my head right now, so I'm just gonna let the good Professor Keleman keep going. Take it away.
You have somebody who's walking by a bush, and I jump out from behind the bush and I go, boo! So the person might go, ah!
Hang on a second.
Percentages. And because of every other brain in this room,
okay, we're talking about the brain.
But by very small percentages. And
right,
because
so brains vary, we're all different, but they vary by small percentages.
Brain chemistry has parameters, therefore, you only react within certain parameters. So for example, you have somebody who's walking by a bush, and I jump out from behind the bush and I go, boo! So the person might go, ah! The person might go, wah-ha! Yeah? But they're not going to go, right? They don't do that. That's not how people react.
Sure. Oh, commercials. Let's continue here.
So within psychology, we have the exact same phenomena happening over and over and over and over and over again. Within history, the exact same scenarios happen over and over and over again, so much so that historians have a 3-word algorithm that describes patterns in history. They say history repeats itself. And it does. In generic themes, it does. Now, of course, there was never another Napoleon who was short with a big nose who led a war of liberation. Yeah.
He wasn't short, incidentally. He was average height.
Fine. But if you want to see wars of liberation parallel to, let's say, the French Revolution, I can show you 100 in history. The reason why you don't have another Napoleon is because what are the odds that in only, let's say, 5,000 years of comprehensive human history, we're going to discover another guy by the name of Napoleon? But if you had enough time, if you had an infinite amount of time, we'd expect there to be more Napoleons in history.
Sure.
Because history does repeat itself. It's possible there to be one guy's name Napoleon, eventually someone else come up with another name by the name of Napoleon. It'll happen again. History repeats itself. Just as natural things happen more than once in history, and natural things happen more than once in psychology and in all the hard sciences, natural things happen more than once when it comes to the study of religion. For example, every religion on this planet begins when one or two people have a master revelation and persuade everyone else to follow. Have a private revelation and persuade everyone else to follow. That's a common pattern. All religions begin that way. Okay. I'm now going to arm the bomb. Once it's armed, I will slide it off my table into your lap. I will warn you right beforehand, and then it will detonate. Okay? Watch.
I'm here for this, man. I'm here for it. Let's go. Come on. Pausing for
If
dramatic
it
effect.
is normal for a religion to start with a story about 3, 4, 5, 10, 100 people hearing God speak, if that's a normal, natural phenomenon, it should happen more than once. To illustrate that point, consider the following. Is it normal and natural for someone to get away with a lie that a divine creature impregnated a woman and she gave birth to a miraculous child? Is that a lie that someone could get away with? The answer is yeah. How do I know? Well, Christianity's got it, the Greek mythology's got it, repeats over and over and over and over again. I can name a dozen religions that have that mythology. Okay. Is it normal to get away with a lie that a man ascended to the heavens, achieved great wisdom, and then came back down to earth to tell everybody else about the wisdom he had achieved? Yeah, it's easy to get away with that lie. Buddhism did it, Scientology did it, Joseph Smith didn't ascend, but essentially he did it. Right? I can name a dozen religions where a guy told a lie about ascending and then coming down and great wisdom. You can get away with that lie. Can you get away with a lie? The 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 people heard God speak words. And then those people survived to talk about it. Can you get away with that lie? Well, the easiest way to find out is, well, see if anyone does. Is there any other religion on the planet that makes that claim? So now, at this point, unless you actually have a master's or a PhD in religions, you won't know, but don't trust me. Go do your research. Yeah, today we've got Google, the whole world's at your fingertips. Go check it out. See if there's another religion on the planet anywhere that claims that more than 2 people heard God speak. And if it never, ever, ever happens in history, then it's not normal and natural. Okay? Now, the bomb's armed. I'm going to slide it off my table into your lap. There we go. This is the dramatic conclusion. Watch this. You leave here tonight and you call up one of your friends and you say, oh, yeah, it was better than Criminal Minds. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, the guy made a rational argument that in fact God's supposed to use Mount Sinai. Your friend says, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? Yeah, he said, this whole thing couldn't have started. This mythology that all these Jews believed throughout history, realize every person in this room descends, is either a convert or descends from somebody who believed in the Sinai revelation. Because until 200 years ago, there was no such thing as reform or conservative or all those movements that exist.
Yeah.
Everybody 200 years ago believed this thing.
Tradition, tradition. So much trouble in the world.
Everyone here descends from somebody who at some point believed it. By the way, you can check that, go open up a history book, and see what Jews believed 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. So, there's no way that story could have gotten launched, you say to your friend, unless God spoke to the Jews. That's crazy. Could have been launched in a million different ways, naturally. She said, really, tell me one. So your friend says, I'll tell you what it was. When they left Egypt. So, what did they have, 1 box of matzah? How much food could they carry? So whatever, after 3 weeks, they were starving. And they came to a field, and it was filled with mushrooms. And they started to pop those things. And then 15 minutes later, whoa, man, we hear God speaking! Woo! Yeah, it was a mass drug trip. Okay, so you say, wow, I never thought about that.
I have.
When your friend suggests that, ask your friend 3 questions. Question number 1. Is it normal and natural for a group of people on drugs to hear God speak and all think he's saying the same thing?
No.
At Woodstock, they all heard God speak, but they didn't think he was saying the same thing. Yeah? Is it normal for them all to think God's saying the same thing? So your friend says, yeah, that could happen. That's normal, that's natural. Sure, that could happen. Question number 2. Do normal, natural things happen more than once? Friend says, I believe in scientific method. Sure. Normal, natural things happen more than once. Question number 3. Can you name one other religion in history that ever made a claim that more than 2 people heard God speak? If it's normal, natural, it should happen more than once. Why was there another group that took drugs and all thought they heard God speaking? Lots of people take drugs. So your friend says, no, it wasn't a drug trip. I'll tell you what it was. It was, they were walking through the desert, and there was this wind blowing by this cliff, and it made this noise. Like, and Moses got on top of this thing and stood there with a megaphone, and he cried out, I'm the Lord your God, you know God before me. And they thought it was God. It was like, it was wind and thunder, and
The
they
old
thought it was
David
God.
Copperfield act.
She said, wow, I never thought about that. Let me ask you 3 questions. Is it normal and natural for people walking in a desert when they hear wind to think they're hearing God speak? Yeah, that's normal and natural. Sure, that can easily happen. Question number 2, do normal and natural things happen more than once? Yeah, sure. Normal, I believe in the scientific method. Question number 3, a lot of people walk through deserts. Can you name one other religion ever in history that was a result of walking through a desert and hearing wind blow thought they heard God speak? Well, no. Well, then that's not natural. Well, I'll tell you what it was. It was a mass hysteria because they all left Egypt and they were running and he saved their lives. They owed him. So, I never thought about that. Let me ask you a question. Is it normal and natural for a group of runaway slaves, right, to think that they hear God speaking because they have a charismatic leader? Yeah, that's normal and natural. That can easily happen. Question number 2, do normal natural things happen more than once? Sure, I believe in the scientific method. Question number 3, there have been a lot of runaway slaves in the last 5,000 years.
True.
And they always run into deserts because you don't run away into the city. And they're always led by somebody. Was there ever another group of runaway slaves who concluded that they all heard God speak? No. Well, then that's not normal and natural either. It turns out that no matter what explanation they give you, if they start to argue, yeah, that's normal and natural, then you'll ask, then why aren't there other religions in history that ever claimed a mass revelation? The fact that it never, ever happened besides the Jews means it's not normal and it's not natural.
Correct.
Okay, now, I'll leave you with a story,
I
and I'll
like
give you a
stories.
quick explanation of all the sheets that I gave you so you can work on them afterwards. I gave this lecture about 20 years ago in Jerusalem.
Yay.
And
I like sitting, I really do.
at the lecture, I always try to point out where the holes in my theory might be. So I pointed out there is a potential hole in my theory because I interviewed people from about 164 major religious families. But there was a religious family that I never interviewed anybody from. And at the end of the lecture, I said, listen, to my knowledge, there is no other group in the world that has a mass revelation, but I've never interviewed anyone from this group. I've read their literature, but you can't always tell from the literature. So maybe go interview someone from this group and see if I'm wrong. Maybe they have a mass revelation. The group is the oldest polytheistic cult on the planet. They're entirely based in India. That's one of the reasons I never interviewed anyone from that group, is I hadn't been to India. They're called Hare Krishna, but they're not the Hare Krishnas that you've ever met if you've been traveling around the U.S. Hare Krishna split when Hare Krishna from India came to America and transformed the religion. He turned it into a monotheistic religion. It's really very, very different here in America than it is in India. But the original Indian Hare Krishna I never interviewed, and they're a very, very ancient group. I said, maybe they have a mass revelation. If it happened 2 or 3 or 4 times in history, it could be that it's a natural phenomenon. A guy walks up to me after the lecture, and he says, Keleman, you don't have to go to India to interview Hare Krishna anymore. So I said, really? I was confident that he did. And I knew he made a mistake. He was confusing the American and the Indian Hare Krishna. So he says, no, they set up a temple in Tel Aviv. So I said, I doubt that it's the Indian Hare Krishna. I'm sure it's probably the American Hare Krishna who I did interview, and they don't have a mass revelation. But I'm happy to speak to the people at the Indian temple in Tel Aviv. So I called up. I spoke to the fellow on the phone. I said, listen, I'd like to speak to the director of outreach. Indian Hare Krishna don't have outreach. I said, I'd like to speak to the director of outreach. They said, just a minute, please. Guy gets on the phone. I say, hi, you're the director of outreach? Yes, I am. So now I know I've got an American group here. So I said, are you the original from India? He says, yes, we're the original from India. You're not the American group? No, we're the original from India. Interesting, I said. He's speaking perfect English with a New York accent. I said, interesting. I said, tell me something, why are you speaking with a New York accent and what are you doing in Israel? I know that Indian Hare Krishna don't do outreach. So he says to me, here's the story. My parents were non-religious Jews living in New York, and they were looking for some source of spirituality in their lives. And so like any intelligent person in New York looking for spirituality, they went to India. When they got to India, they discovered Hare Krishna, and they became Hare Krishna. And I was born in India. The reason my English is perfect New York English is because, right, my parents, that's what they spoke. But I was raised in India. I am one of the original Indian Hare Krishna. So the story sounds very believable. The guy's name, I can't tell you his real name. I can tell you his real first name. His first name is Shrudlu. His last name sounded like Goldberg. So I said, Shrudlu, I really would like to meet you. Is it possible I can get together with you? He says, great. Come on down.
All right.
So I go down to Tel Aviv, and I sit across from this man who's got the whole outfit, the robes, the whole thing. And I said to him, Shrudlu, listen, I'm sure you're a busy man. I'm a busy man. I really only have one question. I need to know your revelation narrative. How did your religion start?
Let's see.
Okay, that's all the information I need, because once I hear it started with 1 or 2 people, I'm done. Right, I can walk away. So I said, how did your religion start? So he says to me, Mr. Keleman, we don't do it that way. So I said, okay, Shrudlu, how do we do it? So Shrudlu says to me, Mr. Keleman, we share. He says, first you tell me your revelation narrative. Then I'll tell you my revelation narrative. So this was too good to be true. Yeah, I went there doing what I thought was academic research. But this Jewish fellow wanted to know about the Jewish revelation narrative. So I said, great. And I told him the whole story that I told you tonight. That 3 million people escaped Egypt, they arrived at Mount Sinai, they all heard God speak, right? God said, I'm Lord your God, you know, that's what motion at the top of the mountain. They were sold, they all became religious. That's the Jewish revelation narrative. I told them at Mount Sinai, when the Jews first heard God say, I'm Lord your God, all the Jews dropped dead. They were then revived. God said, you should have no other gods before me. They dropped dead again. They were all revived. This is part of the oral tradition. Told them this whole story. He said, Mr. Keleman, that was beautiful. He says, now would you like to hear my revelation narrative? I said, sure, before you tell me your revelation narrative, don't you see, I just demonstrated to you that your religion, Judaism, is true. God spoke to the Jews at Mount Sinai. And the proof is, there was never another mass revelation ever in history. If it was normal and natural for people to tell such lies, it would have been told again. Truly, Mr. Keleman. Well, it might be true that your religion, Judaism, is true. It is also true that our religion, Hare Krishna, is true. I said, but surely you couldn't know if your religion is true. Your religion started with 1 or 2 people. I said, Mr. Keleman.
Did we skip it, or did he?
Our religion started with a mass revelation just like yours.
Huh.
This man's very sincere. So I said, what are you talking about? So he says to me, have you ever read the Bhagavad Gita? So I said, you're darn right, I read the Bhagavad Gita, and there's nothing in there about a master revelation. So he said to me, the written text of the Bhagavad Gita just tells the story of the battle between two nations. But we have an oral tradition, he said, that at this battle between these two nations, our chief god, Krishna, descended in the sight of all the people. And all the people who were involved in the battle of the Bhagavad Gita saw that God and heard him speak. And Mr. Keleman was just like you. He spoke, and the experience was so outstanding, so exquisite, so powerful, it blew their souls out of their bodies. They dropped dead on the spot. I couldn't believe it. It happened twice. Judaism and Hare Krishna. Now that either means that Hare Krishna is also true, or it means natural phenomena can happen more than once. If it happened twice, maybe neither is true, and it's possible to get away with this lie. I said, Shulu, tell me the story again. So he starts again, right? There's a million people standing at this battle of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna stands in front of them. He speaks to them. They all hear God speak. They drop dead. I said, I can't believe this. What happened next? He says, what do you mean? I said, they all dropped dead. What happened next? He says, well, they laid there. I said, they didn't get up again? He says, no, they were dead. So I said, well, if they all died, how do you know the story? So he says, well, many years later, this one God came to one person and told him, that man told everybody else. At which point, I opened up a copy of the Torah, I carry a copy of the Torah in my breast pocket, and I read to him the following. If you look on your sheet, the Torah, Revelations, narratives, yeah? Take a look at this. Read the paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 paragraphs up from the bottom. This is the Torah, Revelation, narratives. Yeah, it looks like this. Second, third, yeah, second part, third page, yeah? Count 5 paragraphs at the bottom. You might inquire. This is a passage from the Torah. You might inquire about times long past, going back to the time that God created man on earth, exploring one of them to the other. Okay, that was essentially what I did in my academic career.
Yeah.
See if anything as great as this has ever happened. What? What's so great? Or if the like has ever been heard. Has any nation ever heard God speaking out of fire as you have? Look at those last 3 words. And still survived. Hey, they all drop dead and no one gets back up again? Easy lie to tell, no way to check it. But every single one of you knows that you descended from a group of people who believe this thing with all their heart and soul. They all survived it. And you don't have to believe that God spoke to Jesus at Mount Sinai because someone told you that. There is no other way to explain how millions, you're talking about hundreds of millions of Jews throughout history, believe this thing, unless something supernatural started it, because if it could be started naturally,
It would have.
other groups would have started as well.
Thanks
Yeah, what hell?
for watching. Click subscribe and hit the notification bell below for daily pearls of Jewish.
Okay. Thank you, Jewish Learning Institute. I'm just gonna X out of here, go back to OBS. That was really, really awesome. I had a ton of fun watching that. Hey, Timofey is here. Hang on. I will put... come on. Here, I'll put the link in the chat now. Hang on. I'll put the link in the chat, Tom Fay, if you're still there. Hold on. Here, wait, I'll put it in the description. And I'll put it in the chat. So here, now it's saved in the description. I hope if it will update. And changes, good. If you go to the description, or you reload you go to the description, it will be there. And I will put it here in the chat if YouTube will let it run through. And thank you to... Oh, wait, something happened. I was disconnected. Now I'm connected again. No, I'm still disconnected. I'm not disconnected. I don't know what's going on. Okay, let's continue. As I was saying, hold on. Here, I can do this. Okay, let's X out of here. Make this, hold on, droid cam. Boop. Okay, so here I am. That was lovely. I'll lock this. That was really, really good. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed how analytical it was, how academic it was. I would love to watch that again. Maybe when I'm less tired, it's 11:30 p.m. and see if there's anything there that I would want to. So thank you, Iler, for that. That was really, really good. Okay, now what I like to say is that as far as I'm concerned, it could all be mythology. We can grant that and say, okay, but where does it meet me here in this world, in this life? What does it call, what type of life is this mythology calling me to lead? I guess that's what I go with when it comes to me personally. Pardon me. So, wow. I think, I think I might say good. Hey, Paula is here. Hello, or was here. Hello, Paula. You know what? I am tired. I think I'm gonna go to sleep. Yes, but I would love to get into this chat. I would love to get into this chat and go through it perhaps. And like I said, I have other chats that I still haven't arrived at the end of. But it is late. This was so much fun. I hope that it wasn't too much of me just staring and watching it. I hope I was able to at least every now and then entertain you with a commercial or uh, or something. I'm basically here to react to this live. It's very, very lovely to see that person, the way he speaks, the lecture that he gives. People smarter than me may be able to punch holes in this thesis that he's putting forth, but I am not academically oriented or intellectually inclined enough to know things and to remember things and to cite things. I'll just say that I love this guy's approach. I think it's a healthy approach. This is also why I love Max Desimonim so much, because he's there exploring. He is there trying to make sense of all of the different teachings that he had come across. And Ramak writes Pardes Limonim. I said, okay, let's see what is correct here. Let's try and separate the wheat from the chaff and come with a like straight and narrow path, as it were. Straight and narrow, I'm saying that as a figure of speech, because many, many times, for instance, especially in the section that I'm reading now, where he will say that a certain term or a certain phrase can mean different sfirot, different revelations, depending on the suffix or the prefix, depending on what is adjacent to it. It's or simply because there's a connection, like father and son, mother and daughter. But I digress. I love the fact that that this lecture comes at it from, okay, let's say it's all a lie. I love that. I love it that that's the premise. I love it that that's right off the gate. Let's pretend that this is complete, utter nonsense. Let's see how this lie can be perpetuated. Let's see when it can be, and how can it go down? The greatest lie ever told. Religion. So, I am going to say goodbye. This has been so much fun. If you want me to react to something else, please leave a comment. I mean, I'm going to end the live. It'll go to private, and a minute later, it'll go to public. Leave a comment, leave a link. I would love to react to more things. I just started this thing, but it seems that if I can make it work and I can actually react and be a little bit entertaining or a little bit informative or a dumbass, and ask dumbass questions, because I don't want to just sit here and gawk at it with you, although that's nice. I don't think that's what YouTube would consider fair use. And I want to I want to live up to the YouTube guidelines, which means that I also need to provide some sort of commentary. I also need to provide some sort of addition to the video that we're watching. And I hope that I'm doing that. And if not, tell me how I can do it better. I mean, so far it's been me reacting to this was what, over an hour, and yesterday was reacting to something that was about 30 minutes or 25 minutes. Clips might be something that I'd want to go with before long things, but it simply played out that way that I'm starting with a couple of longer videos. And I would love to do other long and short videos. So leave a comment. I thank you, each and every one of you, your time, your kind attention. It means a lot to me. I don't take it for granted that I can just sit here, press go live, and there are people here, there's a dialogue here, and we're reacting here. It's a lot of fun. I'm enjoying it. I've always enjoyed it. Laila Tov, says Ariel. Hug, said Sneezer. Go to sleep, HN, says Paula. Indeed, indeed, I shall. I shall go to sleep. So, and I don't know if I said, so leave a comment, hit me up in the DMs if you want to chat. Hebrew Nazarite, look for my tree across the board. And until then, I might go live sometime before Shabbos tomorrow. I don't think I'll have the time. Maybe I'll go Saturday night. I don't know if I'll have the time. And God willing, if not tomorrow, if not Saturday night, I will see you for another live stream at some point next week. Time will tell on all of that. And if I don't see you, Shabbat Shalom, a blessed and bountiful and beautiful Sabbath.